the Magic City. The story of the Magic City in Chapter 7 of the Lotus Sutra follows an account of a long-distant previous Buddha's decision to preach. This decision to proclaim the Dharma is presented on the same model as the decision by Gautama Buddha found in Chapter 2 of the Sutra, and of course in other Buddhist writings. It may be noted now, however, that the Dharma preached by this ancient Buddha of many eons ago consisted in the first instance of the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination. As to the teaching of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Law, this was delivered later at the special request of 16 bodhisattvas, as the text goes on to relate, who then in turn are entrusted with its proclamation. The 16th of these is identified with the present Buddha in this world. The present Buddha, in his turn, predicts that there will be further generations who will similarly receive the teaching of Nirvana, which will again be followed by the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Thus, under ever-repeated circumstances, there are always these two phases. Firstly, there is the initial teaching of Buddhism, the same teaching which the gods entreated the Buddha of antiquity to expound when they said, "World-honored one, turn the wheel of Dharma, beat the drum of Dharma, sweet as dew, bring across the living beings in suffering and distress, make manifest the way of Nirvana." The teaching is first given by a Buddha or a Tathagata because he knows that living beings are strongly attached to pleasure and trifles, because his Skillful Means reaches deeply into the natures of living beings. It is therefore entirely for their sakes that he proclaims Nirvana. As to the second phase, this is the teaching of the Lotus Sutra itself, which assumes the initial teaching of Nirvana, etc. Under what circumstances does an individual Buddha proclaim the Lotus Sutra? Quote, "If the Tathagata knows that the time of his nirvana is near, and the assembly is pure, firm in faith and discernment, thoroughly grasping the Dharma of voidness and deeply entering into meditation, then he will gather together all the bodhisattvas and travakas to proclaim this sutra." Close quote. If the present form of the Lotus Sutra is taken as a unity, so that Chapter 2 may be adduced here as indicative of what a Buddha proclaims when it is time to take this step, it may be recalled that the new teaching is not so much a further teaching with separate, extra content. Rather, it offers a view of the way in which the initial teaching of Nirvana is supposed to be understood. In this further perspective, the status of the initial teaching is made problematical, and it is this that the story of the Magic City is intended to make clear. In the story itself, a band of travelers is crossing a broad expanse of dangerous country to a place of precious jewels. They have an experienced guide, but the conditions are so bad and frightening that the travelers get tired out and wish to turn back. The guide finds this regrettable, bearing in mind the treasure which lies ahead of them, and magically creates a city for their rest and encouragement. The travelers enter the city and imagine they have arrived at their destination, although according to the story it is first presented to them as a temporary resting place. After they have rested, the guide makes the magic city disappear again and summons the travelers onwards to their original goal. The guide is a man described as having many skillful means, and his creation of the magic city is one such. We may note the conscious deliberations involved. Quote, "The leader being a man of many skillful means reflected thus," and reflecting thus by his power of skillful means, he created a magic city more than 300 yojanas across in the middle of their perilous road. The Buddha, who is of course the guide, is said to proclaim 2 nirvanas by his power of skillful means, so that living beings may stop for rest when they are on the way. When we read, quote, "There are not 2 vehicles in the world by which one may attain extinction. There is only the one Buddha vehicle by which one may attain extinction," close quote. It means that it is incorrect to distinguish between an initial teaching of nirvana and an additional new teaching, which would both lead to extinction. The verse explanation of the parable supports this line of thought, as when we read, quote, "There is only one Buddha vehicle, and a second is proclaimed as a resting place." Close quote. Since only one magic city is referred to in the story, it is easy to overlook how staggering this proposed way of assessing the teaching of nirvana must have seemed to those who had hitherto taken Buddha's teaching straightforwardly on the model of, say, the Four Noble Truths. The point of the parable is that the teaching of nirvana, as given in the Four Noble Truths, etc., is only a restful preliminary to the real attainment required. According to this story, it is only by recognizing the magical character of that which is at first manifested that the travelers are able to proceed to real extinction and Buddha insight. At the same time, there is no other picture of real extinction than the original teaching of nirvana. The magic city is intended to be mistaken for the place of precious jewels, nor is the ultimate destination described in any way other than by the same sort of simile as that used for the initial teaching of nirvana, as a place of precious jewels. This does not matter. What counts is that the narrative separation of the two draws attention to the provisional character of the initial teaching. This provisional character has to be recognized before its full intent can be realized.